Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another comic book spoiler review. This one's a little bit fast. I just put out my spoiler review on the Miles Morales origin story, which is up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl. And now I'm going to be covering Spider-Man, where 616 Peter Parker meets Ultimate Universe Miles Morales. And of course, this is like written by Brian Michael Bendis and art by Pacelli, who worked on the Ultimate Universe Spider-Man, both Miles Morales and Ultimate Peter Parker. So it'd be great if you guys just try to get this video to 100 likes. Definitely let me know what you think of this and Ultimate Peter Parker comic book that I covered, as well as the Miles Morales one I recently covered. Luckily, this is like only 5 issues. I got through it pretty quickly, but I wanted to wait until I cover both Ultimate Peter Parker and Miles Morales back to back before I went into this short little adventure. You know, I said it was like an event, but you know, it's like mini event to be correct. And then, of course, right after this, I'll be covering Superior Spider-Man, and that one's gonna be a little bit long. So it's probably gonna be a couple weeks before I get that out because, well, there's something coming up. I can't really. If you follow me on Twitter, you know, some exciting news that I got going on. So it shouldn't interfere too much. But yeah, Superior Spider-Man is gonna be a bit long. But once I get done with that, I'll be heading right into Spider-Verse event. I like to say that'll probably be the first major like comic book event I'll be covering for the channel. Well, I could be wrong. I covered a lot of comics, and I just can't recall if I covered like a big comic book event yet. I probably did like mini kind of events, but nothing like, you know, big expanding kind of thing. But yeah, definitely like and subscribe. Let's try to get I'm getting close to the goal once again. Just putting out there about the Hot Ones Challenge video that I'll do to celebrate my 400 subscriber milestone. So try to get this out to tell your friends and everything like that. If you guys want me to see me try out all the hot sauces from the Hot Ones Challenge, Hot Ones show, I'll actually get the hot sauces. I'll try them out while I answer all your questions via like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, not Facebook, but YouTube. And yeah, and check out my Patreon if you have like certain suggestions for a review that you want me to cover or a topic that you want me to cover. Definitely check out my Patreon. There's 3 very affordable tiers that you can choose from. Anyway, now Spider-Man. We begin this adventure with Peter doing his thing, Universe 616. You know, he just like, you know, at this time he's working for Horizon Lab, so he has like a decent like living conditions, an apartment, you know, stuff like that. Of course, it's like he's in his like late 20s, early 30s at this point in time, and you know, he's just talking about how much he just loves being Spider-Man, or at least loves New York. And despite, you know, doing like, you know, going through the whole Spider-Man shtick with you know, he's stopping a robbery and the police, you know, put guns on him and it's like freeze. Oh, and it's a funny little moment. It had me cracking up. It's like, you know, a police ask, command him to like, you know, put your hands in it, hands in the air, and Peter retorts, and waving like you just don't care in the air. Yeah, it gave me a chuckle. I'm not even gonna lie, because Spider-Man has to be funny. So he ends up getting away. Then suddenly a big burst of light shoot up in the middle of the sky, and he wants to go investigate. And I love this line of dialogue that he narrates to himself as he's like uh as he's um crawling through the ventilation duct, as he which speaks to his experience as Spider-Man. Contrast that to, like, I read through the Ultimate comics before I got to this point, because Ultimate Peter Parker made so many mistakes, like when he just went inside Kingpin's building and got busted by those cameras because he just went in without thinking first, and how much he screwed that up. And Miles did the exact same thing. So he's talking to himself, like, or thinking to himself, like, I better go in here like stealthily, check this out. I can't just leap in without thinking. Like, I made that mistake 3,235, 3,535 times, and it's hilarious, but it's also like, because when I'm reading this, I can't help but think about Into the Spider-Verse movie, when 616 Peter Parker is teaching Miles Morales, one of the very funniest lines, but it speaks to experienced Spider-Man, where it's like, oh, this is standard super villain. They're crawling through the ventilation ducts together, and they see the Kingpin, and it's like, yeah, it's typical super villain stuff. Watch, he's gonna say, "You got 24 hours. You got 24 hours." And it's like, or I call it the goober. Oh, but they called it, like, my Spider-Man said it was like a blah 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 blah. Like, oh, it's always like a doodad. After a while, I just call it a goober. So it's it's pretty much like he just calling the MacGuffin. It's like you've been doing this for a long time. They always call it like a key, like a password key, passcode key, some kind of key. After a while, I just call it a goober. And I just love that, because, like, I love experienced Spider-Man. I love experienced Peter Parker, and, like, in the game, where, like, I say this countless of times, when he's web swinging or going through the city while he's texting MJ, he knows the city back and forth, and it's like he just maneuvers like he did it 1,000 times. And it's like growing up in your household. I imagine that if you grew up in a household for like a decade, it's like if you're like a little infant, and you grow to be like 13, 14 years old, you could probably walk your house blindfolded at this point, because each room by heart. So I just love that. So he goes inside, and he noticed all this different tech and this kind of like Ghostbuster type of ghost trap thingamabob or goober that is shooting out this beam of light. And he knows it's like, okay, it's like it can't be supernatural, because this is Stark tech. So, and he looks around and investigates, and he noticed that a bunch of Mysterio gear, like the fishbowl head and everything. And of course, Mysterio's they got caught by with his pants down, and then he's trying to sneak up behind Peter with like a lead pipe. And of course, Peter effortlessly deflected the hit and knocked him on the ground. And he webs him up, and it's like, you do know I have like Reed Richards and Iron Man on my speed dial. I can just get them. I can call them right now, and so they can take a look at what you're doing, because obviously you are up to no good. And then Mysterio grabs, manages to break free a little bit to grab a gun and try to shoot at Spider-Man, but he misses, hits the machine, and it sucks in Peter Parker through this beam of light. And he is carried into the Ultimate Universe dimension. Sorry, I can't seem to remember by heart the actual number, because like different universes have like a particular number to them. And it's like 1609 or something like that. Maybe I could be wrong. It's like it has to be 1600 something, something like that. I just call it the Ultimate Universe. And it's kind of, but not exactly like the movie where he gets cold shakes and everything like that. Because in the movie, his body is like glitching, because I imagine that would kind of be the case. Excuse me. Kind of like with time travel, it's not exact science because nobody actually have done it before. So it could be just like Terminator, or it could be like Back to the Future. We don't know. So dimension hopping, it could be like you might be glitching out because your atoms isn't coalescing with a different universe that operates on a different frequency than you do. That could be a case to be made. Or it could be something like Doctor Strange 2, where you be perfectly fine. Here you just get cold shakes because I guess it's just like the trip he went through, and it's kind of like, I guess, cold. But now he's in a New York as daytime now, and it was previously night, and he sees the Triskelion in the water, and he doesn't know, because he doesn't have that in his universe, because Shield base isn't an island, it's a helicarrier where he's from. So now he's just completely perplexed. So he's trying to go back to, he's thinking he might just been teleported, or he might be under Mysterio's gas or hallucinations or what have you. So he tried to go back to the same building, but as he's trying to crash through, it's not a abandoned warehouse. It's an actual legit apartment, because that would probably make sense. More often than not, when you probably go to a different universe, a house that you probably are more familiar with might be a bodega in a different universe instead. Or like in Into the Spider-Verse, with Peter and Miles having like a burger, and he mentions that in his universe this particular restaurant closed down years ago. He doesn't know why, but it's like, yeah, something that might be closed down in one place might be thriving in a different universe. So he notices somebody's about to get mugged. He saves the guy, and the guy is like, thanks, but don't you think it is uncool for you to be wearing Peter Parker's outfit? And he's like, what'd you just say? Yeah, you wearing Peter Parker's costume, man. It's like, that's not cool. And it's like the guy died not too long ago. It's like he what? It's so like, so he's his mind is kind of like, oh, okay, I don't think he actually told him that he died, but you can infer it. I'm pretty sure he said but he's like, okay, people know who I am, and it's like, it's daytime. There's like a big facility out on an island off the coast of New York Harbor, and so he web swings and he bumps into Miles Morales, and Miles is just completely beside himself, like, are you Peter? Are you really here? And of course, now, if you've been like a avid reader of comic books in general, about the obligatory superhero fight whenever like superheroes usually do their first team up kind of stuff. And of course, it's old hat, and it's kind of like, I'm pretty sure writers, well, you say writers by this point should kind of learn that lesson, but more often than not, they still do it because, I don't know, they think the readers want to see like, oh, if Thor meets Lady Thor for the first time. They gotta fight because we want to see who's, powerful. No, these are two good guys that should be talking it out and, seeing, like, because I don't know, that's how people interact for the first time. They're still people. It's like when you interact with another person that you don't know that might have some kind of same gimmick as you, your first instinct isn't to throw hands. And it's like hopefully, they kind of leave that in like a vault somewhere and never touch it. So Peter demanding answers. Why is Miles wearing costume, and like, who are you, what's going on? And Miles is trying to ask him some questions, and of course Peter tried to web line his mask off. Of course, Miles easily dodges it, and he's like, oh my god, I can't believe I dodged it, oh my god, that was so awesome. And Peter's like, yeah, good job, kid, and kicks him. And of course they have a fight, and Peter, you can just chalk it up to like Peter is like completely confused and doesn't know what's going on. So he's kind of lashing out, but this is the only part I kind of have like a grievance with, because but it's understandable to some degree, but it's like he is just like, okay, you just went into attack mode from 0 to 100 too fast. So he ends up knocking Miles off the building because he can tell like he's a kid essentially, and he's like, oh my god, I didn't even mean to kick him that hard. If I end up killing some kid wearing my costume, I'm just gonna feel like even more guilty than I'm already have. And then he looks over and try to find him, and of course, not knowing Miles has two powers that Peter does not have, which gives Miles the edge over him: camouflage mode, which catches Peter completely by surprise, and the Venom Zap. And Miles kicks Peter, off, but Peter, does like a web net thing on before they hit the ground, and he webs lines Miles' mask off, and he's like, give me back my mask, this is uncool. And Peter's just demanding answers, which was uncool for Peter to do that. Knowing how he feels about somebody trying to yank his mask off, he should be more than understanding. So Miles used his Venom Zap to electrify the web, which knocks out Peter. And so Miles catches him before he falls, and he uses like in the movie, he uses Peter's web shooter to like web line themselves to safety. And so Peter's unconscious, and like and so Miles doesn't know what to do at this point, so he takes Peter to the Triskelion to meet Nick Fury. So Peter, of course, like Iron Man, Hawkeye, and Nick Fury just like are just perplexed, because it's like, there's Peter Parker alive and older. And so him and Nick having a conversation, and Peter had this like long kind of like big paragraph trying to explain as much as he can, after Fury just says like, try me. And it's like, it's like, I could be experiencing this, I could be doing this, it could be we're in a different dimension here. And so he, while trying to figure out what happened, he has Peter and Miles go back and just have Miles break everything down for this guy. So they take a helicopter ride back to the mainland. That's when Mysterio shows up and shoots a rocket launcher at the helicopter. Now, of course, Ultimate Mysterio has more of like a gaseous type of head, while main 616 has like a fishbowl head that we all know. Here's the kicker, which kind of never really explained how this went about in the first place. But if you read a decent amount of Ultimate comics, or at least more specifically Ultimate Spider-Man, that Mysterio turns out to be kind of like a robot, or almost like a drone like you send out into like space to explore and everything like that. Our Mysterio and the Ultimate Mysterio are technically the same person. Our Mysterio from 616 found somehow a way to create a dimensional rift in order for him to, because he never went personally himself. He sent essentially like a drone, essentially just of himself out, I guess, to commit certain like robberies or what have you, so he can amass a decent amount of fortune, so he can commit like his various crimes. Because and that's another thing, it's like, okay, it's not too crazy to have like similar like singles and $5 bills and $20 bills, $100 bills, but the serial numbers could roughly be different, to where when you try to use it in a different universe, I don't know how the treasury work in the world, or at least more specifically US, but you would think like there's some kind of, will be like a blip in the system or something like that if you try to use unrecognized serial number on a bill, and who knows, and people might assume it's counterfeit, more than likely, because or you can launder it, I guess, but still, it's, I don't know. But also, how did Mysterio figure out, because he's like a special effects guy, and or at the most like a good with like engineering and everything, like anything of that sort. He's not the degree of, and he's not at the degree of intelligence to crack interdimensional pathways, because that's something like somebody as smart as Reed Richards could figure out, or even Tony Stark. Mysterio isn't that smart. He's smart enough to make different various gadgets and stuff like that, and possibly even like chemical compounds to induce some level of hallucinations, sure, but not smart enough that you would think he'll crack interdimensional travel like Reed Richards does. That I'll be finding it more plausible if he stole, because he's just stole Stark Tech. It'll be more plausible if Mysterio stole some device from Reed Richards, like some component that helped him figure out a way into the negative zone. Mysterio somehow stole it and tweaked it a bit to lead him to a different universe altogether. And all this time, he's been traveling back and forth between the Ultimate Universe and the main 616. That would probably play a little bit better, because this seems like he's just able to crack it. He's never came across, no point in his history, that smart. So Peter and Miles try to take this guy down, who sends out hallucinations of them dealing with all these various bad guys, and it seems real to them, even though they're getting tossed around and whatnot. But I guess it's kind of like the Matrix, or Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's like your brain makes it real, so it feels real kind of situation. But Peter knows, but still he's getting like attacked and everything like that. But Miles managed to take down the Robo Mysterio. But Peter dips out in the whole confusion because now, which doesn't really explain why he just goes off on his own after that whole situation. I guess you can chalk it up to saying like, okay, he's overwhelmed mentally, but I don't know. It's like you got essentially a tour guide, but he just goes off on his own. So he tries to go to the one place he feels like it's familiar with him. So he goes to his Aunt May's house, and he in costume out in front on their front lawn, and he sees Gwen and Aunt May step out, and they think it's some idiot dressed up as Peter in his costume, and they screaming at him like, "Get out of here! You disrespectful! You have no heart!" He lifts up his mask and they see an older Peter crying, and of course they still not buying it. And Meg comes up to him, smacks him. Gwen jumps on him, kicks him in the groin and everything like that. And Miles hops in and is like, no, this is actually Peter, kind of, but it's Peter. And this entire moment is honestly my favorite part of the entire adventure, in all honesty. So, because May ends up passing out when Peter just like, "Look, I'm sorry, I should never came here, I was being an idiot, I'm so sorry," and she passes out from that because like she hears I'm sorry so often from her Peter that is the way he says is the only way Peter says it. And she wakes up with Peter, Gwen, and Miles in Peter's room having a conversation, and they're just asking about like the main 616 world. And it's like, and Gwen asks like, are you still like dating MJ? Oh yeah, like she's great, she's around my age, she's actually a supermodel. I was like, supermodel? Brady Jane? And it's like, because they're younger, like nearly half Peter's age. And she asked like, is there a Gwen in your universe? Like, is she cool? It's like, yeah, she's around my age. She was the coolest person I've ever known. So what does she do? Like he doesn't dive into that because like it's like, how you gonna tell like a teenage version of your former girlfriend that she died in a supervillain attack? And it's partially your fault that you accidentally snapped her neck when trying to catch her. That's not something you want to break down to a 17-year-old. And I love the look of, I always look the various looks of Gwen Stacy, but I really love this goth look. I mean, I love goth chicks, but I love this whole goth look Gwen got going on. So it almost reminds me, if you watched the Death Note series, it almost reminds me of what's her name from Death Note? Ah, crap, what's her name? Misa Amane, yeah. Sorry, I had to look up. It's been a while since I watched that. Misa Amane, she kind of got that look going on for her. And Miles asked, like, I wonder if there's like a Miles Morales in in your universe. And Peter's like, I don't know. I, never about to. Cause of course he'll check, but there was because this is long after you know, because by the time he checks, because there is a part 2 to the Spider-Man short issue event where Peter actually does check in his universe if there is a Miles Morales. And of course, this is long after Peter, Miles Morales and his supporting cast got incorporated into the main 616. So I imagine, like, oh yeah, here's Miles Morales, the one that we all familiar with. But there was Miles Morales like issue run. He's like a few years ago, I think, by this point, where because for a short stint after they moved Miles, because he got so popular, into the main 616, you know, some of the editors and writers tried to, you know, like ignore the whole Ultimate Universe situation, because long after this, the Ultimate Universe got, you know, obliterated in this cataclysm situation when universes collide in another universe kind of situation. So they tried to forget about his Ultimate Universe origin story, but after a certain time, they, you know, thanks to Bendis, you know, using his influence, it's like, no, I helped make the universe, Ultimate Universe, what it is. It's a thing, and they, like, you know, make sure that nobody forgets, and it's part of his story. Even though he's in like the main universe, you know, because there's been times in Miles Morales' adventures, he bumps into situations that involve the Ultimate Universe in some bit of capacity. But there was like an adventure where he fought the main 616 original Miles Morales, and I think he's just like well, Miles is half Puerto Rican, half black, while regular Miles Morales is just like a full-blown Mexican guy who's like in that kind of criminal world, like just kind of like the way Aaron Davis is. You know, he's like, you know, not like the Prowler or anything like that, but he's in that kind of criminal thief and work for mobsters and stuff like that. So he's a complete, like, you know, a-hole. So Miles ended up beating him, but he ended up tormenting Miles. It was like a short thing. It's been a long time since I read it, but it was like a moment where he was tormenting Miles because he figured out Miles is from like a different universe, and he feels like Miles is still in his life, using his name and all the other stuff kind of situation. It was like a thing. I don't think it really went anywhere because not many people, well, the comic book industry really don't market efficiently or properly, because I imagine if you advertise it better to make this kind of like a big adventure for Miles where he's dealing with the main 616 version of him who's a bad guy, and people will be jumping on board to read that adventure, because we all know that our Miles Morales isn't from the main universe originally. So you could have done a lot with that. They didn't advertise it that well. And it's just like, I wish they would just carried on with this conversation, because I was so involved just swapping stories about like different lives. 1 second. Swapping stories that, you know, the different lives, you know, everyone could have been in. You know, Peter just so happy to see a living Gwen. I mean, of course, he meets Spider Gwen in Spider-Verse eventually, but he's just so like pleased that you know, she's alive, she's doing well. Glad he didn't come around when she wasn't, when she got attacked by Carnage, but she's here. Um, I just love the art, the way that, you know, Pacelli drew Gwen in this. It's like, you know, every time Gwen is drawn, it's like my favorite depiction of her. I just love Goth Gwen. Uh, um, so May asked him, like, you know, in your universe, Ben is Ben alive? And he be honest with her more so than he did with Gwen. Like, no, unfortunately, he he did die in my universe, but he taught me that with great power, and she finishes, comes great responsibility, and she hugs him. It was like a great moment because she feels so happy that she sees like her nephew grown, living like a good life and everything like that. You know, something that she never got to, and she mentioned she never got to say goodbye to her nephew, and she loved to see like how he would be, you know, if he was allowed to continue his life. Of course, Shield comes up, and they manage to narrow down where, because they're trying to pinpoint where this energy source that will probably had brought Peter into this world. And but as they were leaving, because Gwen earlier called Mary Jane about the situation, and of course this is like a teenage Mary Jane, and she still kind of agreed, you know, it wasn't too long after Peter Parker died, and she's standing across the street wearing shades, and Peter sees her, and he's trying to walk over to her, and she just runs away. She just couldn't handle it, because if you watched my review or read yourself the main or at least read like the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, they've been on and again, off again for a long time, and as she sees like an older version of her boyfriend, she can't, like, you know, it's too much. So, and there's a funny moment when like I don't know if it was Miles or Nick who brought it up, but I was like, is there a Nick Fury in your universe? Yeah, he is, but except, you know, he's a white guy in my universe. And Nick was like, well, that's too bad. It was like, you know, because everybody knows that, I mean, like, for a long while, and like, you know, whenever like the original Nick Fury was created, up until the point of maybe like the mid 2000s, we always had like a white Nick Fury who kind of looks like David Hasselhoff. And there was in the 90s, there was a Shield, Nick Fury, Agent of Shield movie played by David Hasselhoff that I watched only one time back in the day. Matter of fact, I should try to find that again, because it'd be fun to just revisit. Matter of fact, yeah, let's put on a list. I don't know if I'll do it this year or next year, but it'd be kind of fun to like review that, because it's been because I remember it was decent. When did it come out? 1998. Yeah, definitely. God, I don't know when I'll cover this, because I got a lot on my plate this year as it is. But I might do that for me, like a Father's Day thing. Yeah, I'll do that for like a Father's Day thing. It seems like a kind of like a Father's Day type of movie for a theme month. Yeah, because I haven't seen that in a long time. I saw that probably one time as a kid. But anyway, they head back to the Triskelion, and Peter sees Tony Stark. I was like, you know, wow, Tony, it's like, it's like, and I forgot how the exchange exactly went. He's just like, oh, it's, you know, uh, so Tony Stark. Well, I know a Tony Stark, but of course he sees Tony Stark with like a martini in his hand because he's James Bond. 1 second. And Peter mentions like, yeah, well, my Tony Stark quit drinking a long time ago. And Nick's like, yeah, I like him already. Yeah, don't. He still has his little antics, but yeah, he's off the sauce for many years. And still goes to AA meetings and everything like that, of course. So, using his science brain, because so often people end up forgetting that Peter Parker is an intelligent person and utilizes science. So he's with Tony Stark breaking things down while Miles looking on the computer screen. And he notices like, because they have an image of Mysterio, and he notices like a building that's like, it's in Brooklyn. Hey, I recognize that building. I see it outside my window in Brooklyn. Tons of times. So they go there. They even bring in some Shield agents, Thor, and Hawkeye, and they managed to track that thing down. And of course, back in 616, Mysterio's contemplating on just, okay, my drone is down. I could just shut it off, trap him there forever. That'll be the end of, because Mysterio, who passes back and forth between, uses a drone to pass back and forth between universes, would know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, because that universe, Ultimate Universe is dead. So he can just trap his Peter Parker there, so that way he will never have to interact with Spider-Man ever again. But because he has a pick at it, he activates the portal just so he can check to see. But then he gets webs. Two webs come reaching through and yanks. And both Miles and Peter yanks Mysterio back into the portal into the Ultimate Universe. And they was just waiting, and they was about to arrest him until Mysterio sends off this kind of hallucination thing again, and everybody started seeing like their worst fears. It'd be kind of fun to see like a death battle or something like that with Mysterio versus the Scarecrow, because they essentially do the exact same thing with like affecting people through hallucinations or fear or whatever. So Iron Man sees like the death of the Ultimates. Nick Fury sees the destruction of the city. Peter sees the death of Aunt May by Doc Ock and Green Goblin. Miles sees his uncle killing his parents, and they all freaking out. And Peter's trying to tell everybody to get their heads together. This is all a hallucination. Don't fall for it. And Miles gets out of it first and starts attacking Mysterio. They end up, colliding into the portal, and Miles ends up for the first time in the main 616 temporarily. And of course, Mysterio tries to come behind Spider-Man with a lead pipe again, like it's freaking Clue. And it's like, once again, Spider-Man gets a jump on him, and it's like, you can't beat. It's like, why are you always trying to sneak up on like a Spider-Man, knowing that they can easily dodge without even looking at you? And of course, Miles tackles him back into the portal, back into the Ultimate Universe, and both Peter and Miles, kick Mysterio's ass, and Miles zaps him and Mysterio's neutralized. And as Mysterio's getting carried away, because Nick was telling him like, you are under arrest, and Mysterio's like, no, you can't arrest me, I don't belong here. And he, Nick talks to Peter. It's like, I'm assuming that in your universe nobody knows who you are, am I correct? That's correct. So you don't have no problem me keeping this guy here? I was like, actually, no, I have no problem with that. So because that will be, there's a smart play. Also, a very smart play, very smart writing, because like he could be arrested, but he will blab to his world who he really is, and he can't have that. And this is not too long after the whole one more day situation with Spider-Man, one of the most hated comic book stories in existence. So Miles then asks Peter, it's like, is it okay for me to do this? Do I have your blessing to being Spider-Man? And Peter's like, oh, you definitely have my blessing, man. You are awesome. Just as I need to let you know a few things about being Spider-Man, okay? Don't let anybody clone you. If Doc Ock's trying to hook up with Aunt May, don't let it happen. Don't date any one woman one at a time. And absolutely, this is imperative. Do not let this happen. And then he gets back into his main universe. But this really like I assume he was about to warn him about like Venom symbiotes and stuff like that. My assumption. But Miles is just like overjoyed that, because he never got that chance with his Peter, but to have a Peter give him like from his voice, to say like, yeah, you're the best, you are amazing. So yeah, you have my overall blessing. So of course he's looking up Miles Morales, and it leads on a cliffhanger. And of course, this is like almost 5 years later when Spider-Man 2 comes out, and this is already long after when the Ultimate Universe is gone, and certain key people are brought over to the main 616, like Black Nick Fury. Only difference is that, well, Miles and his supporting cast just got picked up and placed there. Nick Fury is, they set up to where it's like, oh, white Nick Fury had sex with a black woman, and that's where we got our Sam Jackson lookalike. And don't know why they just can't say like, oh, we like Black Nick Fury, so we just transfer him over, and without you going through this whole complicated mess with like white Nick Fury had like a thing with like a black woman and had like a illegitimate kid. But anyway, I love this story. It's honestly one of my favorite team ups in comic book history. Great writing, and like I said, my favorite part is when just Peter just having a conversation with these Ultimate Universes version of his supporting cast, and him finding out about all the stuff that's going on with them, and he tells Gwen to make sure like, yeah, I'm glad you're here looking after my Aunt May. Like I appreciate that, because there's always his main concern has always been his aunt, because it's always been the two of them, and it's to know that somebody's looking out for her, even though that Peter's gone, there's somebody there. And of course, like I said, during my coverage of Ultimate Peter Parker, Spider-Man, and Miles Morales stories, that Ultimate Peter Parker, in a different story at some point, I cannot recall, he did return back to life for somehow, and talks with Miles, and I gotta look it up when that happened, but he is living out a I don't know if it's like the main universe, because at some point the Ultimate Universe got back. Like I said, some people play fast and loose whether or not Ultimate Universe is back on track again. but he's living out a peaceful life with his like MJ. But yeah, that is Spider-Man. And let me know in the comments below what you thought about the story. Highly recommend it. Like I said, I wish we had more time to actually get like a moment of him talking with Ultimate MJ and everything like that. Or it's just, you know, it's just that little sequence was so, it's the most engaging part. But yeah, this is great. I haven't read Spider-Man 2 before. Maybe at some point in the future I'll read it. But yeah, I will see you guys for the next comic book review. Will be Superior Spider-Man, which I really have not read that much of because I never liked the whole Doc Ock and Peter Parker's body as much as everybody else did. But I will cover it. We'll play by ear when I eventually get around to doing the video review. But I will see you guys a little bit later when I get back to more RE4 remake. And anyway, yeah, take care and have a pleasant evening.